Bringing people and communities together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station.
It's a New York City special this week when Kate from the New York Tourist Board based in London tells us all we need to know about the city they named twice, New York, New York. Hello and welcome to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Hello and welcome to this week's travel show with John Guinn. In a moment I'll be speaking to Kate Popham from the London office for the New York Tourist Board. I'm going to find out all about New York City. It seems that I'm a bit of a fraud in the travel world because I seem to be the only person who's in travel who's never been to New York. Hopefully I'll be able to put that right soon. But until then I'm going to get my taste from speaking to Kate about what this city can offer. And at the end of the show there'll be travel news as normal. This interview was recorded last year with Kate and I'm replaying it because actually I'm away on my own trip at the moment somewhere where hopefully I'll be putting a show together to tell you about when I come back. So I'm not going to say where I'm going in case it doesn't come off. But anyway, all the stuff is from last year, but it's still relevant for this year. And I hope that you find that New York's the place where you want to pop to before you do your Christmas shopping this year. Okay, which UK airports have non-stop flights to New York?
You can fly to New York from various points around the UK. The majority of flights are from London Heathrow. Also, there's a business class only flight from London City Airport. But United also has some regional departures from airports including Manchester, Birmingham, Glasgow, Edinburgh and Belfast. So there's really good connections. In addition to that, Jet2 runs seasonal charters every year around the winter time in November and December for specific Christmas shopping trips, which have always been really popular. And we've just learnt that Norwegian will be launching some flights from July, leaving from London Gatwick as well. So there's a really good choice of flights going to New York every week.
So there's plenty of options, but how long does it take?
It's probably about 7 hours. It will obviously depend on your regional departure point, but the general flight time is around 7 hours, so it's really not too far at all.
No. This is a kind of a very long question. As far as I'm aware, there are 3 main airports for New York. Do the airports, each airport favour a particular type of traveller, like budget or business? Are they best for one part of the city? Which is the easiest to get to the city, the hotel in the city by public transport? And how much is a cab from each airport to Times Square? So I said it was a long question.
Yeah, you're right. There are 3 main airports. There's JFK, Newark and LaGuardia. But LaGuardia is really just for domestic flights, so it's unlikely that people from the UK would be arriving into that one. So it's really just JFK, which is to the east of Manhattan, and Newark, which is to the west, which international travellers will be using. And really there's not much to choose between them in terms of facilities or the type of people that they will appeal to or equipped to deal with in terms of business or leisure travellers. They're about equidistant from Times Square, so there's not much of an issue in terms of timing. So really it's more of a case of people choosing according to the flight prices or according to the airline that they're using, which airport they go into. They might find if they're staying on the west side of Manhattan that they prefer to come to Newark, and likewise if they were staying in Brooklyn or Queens or on the east side of Manhattan, they might find that JFK is going to be more convenient. But actually, taxi prices from both airports are set. It's a set fare to wherever you're going in Manhattan. So whether you're traveling to Lower Manhattan or up to Harlem or Times Square or Soho, that will be a set price by taxi. And that might vary a little bit according to the day because there's a standard fare plus tolls for bridges or tunnels that you're using. And at different times of day, the taxi drivers might decide to take a different route into the city because they'll know the traffic flows. But you're probably looking at around $90 from Newark versus probably around $70 from JFK, depending on really how much you want to tip, because taxi drivers in New York will expect a bigger tip than we'd probably be used to giving in the UK, so sort of 15 to 25%. But they are both very well linked by public transport. Personally, when I go out to New York, I've always got the subway from JFK or from Newark. and you'd be taking the air train and then connecting to a subway, which will take you pretty much anywhere you want to go into Manhattan. But the cost of that would be around $7.50 per person. And there are also coach services, there's airport shuttles, private limousines, and trains, of course, which will probably cost you around $15 each. So there's really, a multitude of options for people arriving. It really depends, whether you're in a bigger group and you feel like a taxi is going to be more economical, or if you're on your own and arriving at a nice time of day, you might be happy catching the subway, which I always find is a fun way of kind of checking out the locals and really getting a feel for being in New York.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll do the public transport because you mentioned tips and I'm really tight, so.
And they do expect it when you pay by credit card in a taxi. They will have the suggested tips there for sort of 10, 20, 30%, as I suggested. So yeah, it's going to be a higher level than we would probably expect in the UK.
That's put me out in a cold sweat, that has.
It's a tipping culture in New York, or in the US in general, really.
Yeah. Oh dear. Perhaps I won't visit.
Don't let that put you off. There's always public transport.
I'll do public transport or walk, yeah. The city is divided into different boroughs or areas. Which is the best location for the first timer on a budget?
I think for first timers, really they want to be at the heart of the action and see everything, all the classic sites that New York has to offer. So really Manhattan is going to be the first choice. And the range of accommodation in Manhattan goes from the budget sort of hostels with dorm rooms up to the super luxury and the Grand Dame kind of properties like the Plaza and the Four Seasons and Mandarin Oriental. So you've really got every scale of accommodation represented in Manhattan. We will find that there's a lot of hotels being opened in boroughs like Brooklyn and Queens, and even the Bronx now has its own hotel, which opened this summer. And you will find that they are at a lower price point if you're prepared to stay out in the boroughs. But we tend to find that from the Brits, certainly that's more an option for the second or the third time visitors, or the people who are really familiar with the city, are happy using public transport, and are kind of looking to find a bit more of a local experience and discover a new part of the city that they haven't seen before. For the first timers, I think Manhattan is always going to be the popular option, because you can just walk outside your hotel and find yourself in the movie set, the real life movie set that is New York City, and you'll be able to walk to the main attractions and just really get a feel of that excitement that gets inside you when you arrive in New York City.
What are the main attractions in New York?
Oh, so many to list. I would say things like Central Park, Times Square, the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, the Rockefeller Center, shops, obviously, Macy's, Bloomingdale's, Fifth Avenue as a whole, Broadway. Obviously, there's all these iconic buildings like the New York Public Library, Grand Central Terminal, the Chrysler Building, the Flatiron Building, places like Washington Square Park, Union Square. In Lower Manhattan, you have Wall Street. You've got neighborhoods like Tribeca, Soho, Chinatown. You have the Staten Island Ferry, which is a very iconic symbol of New York, and the Brooklyn Bridge. It's really quite an endless list, and there's new icons arriving all the time. So things like the High Line, which only opened in 2009, is now one of the most visited sites. And ditto, the 9/11 Memorial down at the World Trade Center, that's become very popular with visitors since it opened in 2011.
So there's plenty to see and do, but is it really the city that never sleeps?
Yes, it can be, if that's what you're interested in. I think most tourists will be fitting in some sleep at some time. But the good thing about New York is that because it's a late-night city and it's a never-stopping city, you can really make the most of your time on the ground and pack in as much as you can when you're there. So you will find things like shops in Times Square that will open until midnight. The Staten Island Ferry runs 24 hours, so if you wanted to take a boat trip in the middle of the night and quite sort of a serene time to view New York City from the water, that's an option. One of my top tips also is, when I'm sending people there, to recommend that they go to either the Empire State Building Observatory or Top of the Rock late at night, because both of those are open till 1 or 2 a.m. So it's a really good time if you want to beat the queues and not have to wait in line for a long time. You can go there after your dinner, skip a lot of the tourists, and perhaps if you don't have children, skip a lot of the families, and sort of spend less time in the queue and more time actually viewing Manhattan from above.
Yeah, I quite fancy that, 1 o'clock in the morning, looking over the lights.
Yeah, I think it's quite a nice time to be there, and it's quite a special time when you're up on one of these observation decks without hundreds of tourists around you. You can almost have it to yourself.
Yes, being on my own, that'd be great too. It's not only my type, I'm not very sociable either.
Gary Fitz here, every Monday, 10 o'clock. Coming up, we've got Eric and Ernie. Join me here on Set Close Sounds.
In your smile.
It's from 1975, Eric and Ernie were four...
Gary, it's not Eric and Ernie, it's Earl and Ernie, the Cape Brothers, Union Man.
Oh, I see. Gary Fitz here, every Monday, 10 o'clock.
Earl and Ernie.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on setclosesounds.org. This week's show is a New York City special. I'm speaking to Kate from the New York City Tourist Board, who have an office in London, and she's telling us all about New York City. You've already mentioned that you like getting around on the subway from the airports and public transport, but how easy really is it to get around? And there is talk of having no-go areas in the city. Is that true?
I think that's a bit of an outdated concept now. It's actually, New York City is actually the safest large city in the US, and there have been problems in the past, but I think it's been well documented that in the last decade there's been such a no tolerance to crime policy that that crime has really, really reduced. I've personally never felt unsafe walking around in Manhattan or in New York City. I think with any large city you've got to keep your wits about you, don't leave your bags unattended, all those kind of normal things. But I've never felt unsafe. The subway runs 24/7, and it covers a good network of the city, so you're never really too far from a public transport stop. Taxis are also widely available and a lot cheaper than we'd pay in the UK, so that's another good way of getting around. But largely it's a walking city. Most New Yorkers walk. People don't really have their own cars and drive very much, so you know, most places you want to get to, you'll be able to walk within a reasonable amount of time. A good rule of thumb is to think that every block you'd be walking north to south would take you around a minute, so you could look at a map and sort of judge that way how long it would take you to walk somewhere. But definitely I do feel like it's a safe city, and neighbourhoods in the past, I think I went there when I was about 10 years ago, and neighbourhoods like Harlem and Hell's Kitchen were kind of recommended by the guidebook to stay away from. Whereas now these are two of the most vibrant, exciting, thriving parts of Manhattan. So you go to Hell's Kitchen just west of Times Square. It's got lots of bars, restaurants, cafes, shops, theatres, and Harlem has become really, really popular. It's had a massive resurgence. It has a Loft Harlem hotel, which opened a few years ago, which sort of really put it at the heart of the tourist experience. It's got museums, it's got galleries, it's got some fantastic restaurants which have huge waiting lists to get into, and theatres, like the Apollo Theatre in Harlem, which is very, very famous. So areas that perhaps 10 years ago or 20 years ago people wouldn't have gone to have now very much become the heart of the city and are very much on the tourist trail. So I think perceptions have changed a lot, and the actual experience has also changed a lot.
Okay, so I'll go everywhere. You said
Yep.
you said most people walk, so if somebody was on an epic fly drive holiday, you wouldn't recommend that they put New York as part of the fly drive package?
I think you can certainly include New York on a fly drive package, but you probably want to leave the car behind. So whether it's at the start or the end of your itinerary, and you can either return your rental car before you get there or arrange to pick it up after you've had your few days in the city, that would probably work pretty well. Parking in the city is not cheap, so you're not going to find hotels in Manhattan with car parks. However, if you were to stay out a little bit further, perhaps around maybe one of the airport hotels, you might find hotels which have that parking space. But I think basically you'd leave your car behind while you're exploring the city. There's no need to sort of drive around central Manhattan. You'd really want to park it up somewhere and then use public transport to get around when you're exploring New York, because otherwise you have to deal with traffic and parking charges, and I think it's going to dampen your enjoyment of the city, let's say.
Yeah. Okay, leave the car somewhere else. You said it's expensive to park if you can park, but how does the cost of living for a visitor on a short break to New York compare to somebody on a short break in London?
I think it's pretty comparable in terms of, neither of them have particularly cheap hotels. We know that New York isn't the cheapest hotel city in the world. However, there are lots of ways that you can economize while you're in New York City, perhaps thinking about the time of year that you're going to travel or the days of the week. Something we're promoting quite strongly at the moment are Sunday night stays, to promote the fact that Sunday nights are generally the cheapest nights to stay in New York City. That's when the hotel rates are at the lowest. So if you include a Sunday night on your stay, you're going to be finding your overall hotel costs cheaper than traveling midweek, for instance. So public transport in New York I would find cheaper than in London. The attractions are fairly comparable. You do find that you will be paying for museum entries and gallery entries in New York, which you don't in London, but often these museums have certain times of the week, an afternoon perhaps, or a couple of hours when you can get in for free, or you have a pay-what-you-wish session. There are also multi-attraction passes that can cover a variety of experiences or tours or attraction entry in one price. So you'd buy a pass for maybe $90 and that would get you into a certain number of attractions while you're there. So there's definitely ways. It's just really a question of planning in advance. Something else to be aware of is that a lot of New York hotels don't offer bed and breakfast. They will just be room only. But you can pick up breakfast very cheaply. For instance, there's bagel trucks on every corner in the morning, and you can get a coffee and a bagel there for around $2. So it's really very affordable if you know how to do it. But equally, if you want a blowout holiday, you can find that in New York too. So you can feed yourself for $2, or you can feed yourself for $30. It's really a question of what you're after.
I'm after $2.
Which is more my kind of budget too. So I find that's plenty for me.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org.
This is Seclo Sounds. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. for 1 hour in the company of Harry and Edna on the wireless, exploring all aspects of the vintage scene and playing tip-top gramophone tunes. Harry and Edna on the wireless, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on seclosounds.org. Jolly good.
Sound the big thing now.
Hi, blessings to each and every one of you. Join me, Darren Hoy, with the Reggae Takeover Show for 2 hours of the finest reggae vibes, each and every Wednesday, 9 through to 11 p.m, here on Seclo Sounds. Don't miss out on your weekly Sunshine Fix, featuring roots, rude boy, dub, lovers rock, ska, one drop, and much, much more. So go on, give your sound system a treat. Join me, wind down low, and skank the night away. One love. That's Wednesdays, 9 through to 11 p.m, live on Seclo Sounds.
Get it up, my selector.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. If you've been to New York City on a trip, business or pleasure, please share your experiences at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. As I mentioned, I'm speaking to Kate from the New York Tourist Board office in London, and she's filling us in on all the wonderful things you can do when you visit this city. We're talking New York City on the travel show this week. I'm speaking to Kate from the London office of the New York City Tourist Board, and we're moving on now to where's the best way or where's the best place to get tickets for theatre. Should you book in advance, or should you get a cheap ticket when you're there? Let's hear what Kate has to say.
You said about planning ahead and knowing where to go to eat and stuff, but a lot of people go to New York for the theatre. Is it best to book while still in the UK or when you get there? And if you were there and you wanted to get a last-minute ticket, where would you go?
You can book in advance, or you can book when you get there. It really depends on your circumstances and how much you want to see a particular show. Obviously, if there's a particular show that you're really keen to see, and maybe just one night of your holiday that you have free, we'd advise that you book in advance because you've got more chance of getting those tickets for that particular night. You might end up paying full price for those tickets. So if you wanted to look for a discount ticket, you can, by all means, queue up. There are TKTS booths at 3 locations around New York City, and also the box offices of the particular theatres will sell last-minute tickets for the performances that night. and you might make savings of 40 to 50% on those tickets, but equally you might be spending an hour or two queuing up for them. So it's really a question of valuing your time and thinking how much you want to see a Broadway show, which might be any Broadway show, and how much you specifically want to see something like The Lion King or Wicked. There are a lot of shows that will sell out a long time in advance, so if you've got a particular show you want to see, we'd always advise you book in advance. And the same would go if you were travelling with a family or a larger group. You wouldn't be guaranteed to have 4 or 6 tickets together in the same area of the theatre if you were booking them on the day itself. So if you were in that kind of circumstance, we would also advise booking in advance.
Okay, book in advance. That's clear.
Yep.
New York is famous for its food. Well, I think it is anyway. Is there a particular diner or restaurant that every visitor should get to, no matter what budget they got?
I don't really think there's one restaurant or diner that we can recommend above any other. I think in New York it's largely about the food experience. Like you say, New York's very famous. You can eat your way around New York. Eat your way around the world in New York, trying every different ethnic cuisine. But something I think that I enjoy when I go to New York, and certainly friends and family of mine, is the sort of finding those New York classics. So going for a New York pizza or a burger, a hot dog, or a slice of New York cheesecake, or a coffee from a deli. So I think it's just a question of finding those experiences, and they're widely available across the city. You're not going to be able to walk a block without finding a food outlet or a restaurant, I don't think. The other thing they are big on in New York is brunch. That's an incredibly popular meal, so I would always recommend that you try and find somewhere to have brunch. And if you have a good New York City brunch, you're going to be filled up till dinner time.
So it's just as well you're walking everywhere then?
Yep. You need that energy in the morning.
Yep. Central Park is very famous, but what is there actually to do there?
There's plenty to do in Central Park. It's a large stretch of park in the middle of Manhattan. It's the main playground for many New Yorkers. So it's somewhere that you'll, first of all, encounter people from all walks of New York City life as well as other tourists. So I quite like people watching when I go there. It's a great place just to wander or to have a picnic in the warmer months. But equally, you can explore it on walking tours, on cycling tours. I think when you walk around it, you'll recognise a lot of backdrops from films. There's a lot of places like fountains and the boating lake. The Imagine Peace Mosaic is a very popular place for British travellers, which commemorates John Lennon, who was shot nearby. As I mentioned, the boating lake, if you want to take out a boat and go for a row in the summer months, that's really popular. Central Park Zoo for those with kids, which is probably even better known now with the Madagascar films.
So it does exist?
It does exist, yes. It doesn't have talking lions, unfortunately, but it's a popular spot for families. In the winter, you can go ice skating at the ice rinks there, and there's always various events going on, particularly in the summer months. You'll find a lot of free concerts, theatre events, fitness events, everything going on through the year. And of course, it's a great place at any time of year to go for a run.
It's never a great place to go for a run. Unless you're trying to escape and something.
Runners, then. You can watch other people running.
Yeah, that's more my style. What about Times Square? If you stay in a hotel near Times Square, is it going to be too noisy to sleep?
Hopefully not. In hotel terms, Times Square stretches for quite a few blocks to the north, south, east and west. So you will find quieter areas rather than the really, really heart of Times Square. But what we have to remember is that most hotels in the Times Square area are going to be in high-rise buildings. So actually you're quite removed from the street level, which is where most of the noise will be coming from. If you're concerned, obviously take earplugs and an eye mask, because actually some people find that the neon lights are more distracting than the noise. But it's really kind of the fun of being at the heart of the action, and I think most hotels have a quiet side and a noisier side. But they're all modern buildings. They've been very well equipped to shut out sound, and you shouldn't be disturbed by the hustle and bustle of Times Square if you're staying in that area.
Okay, so all I'll be out here, well, all my wife will be out here is me snoring then. And,
yes, perhaps. You might have more of an issue with that.
Yeah, tell me about it.
You can contact us or just keep up to date with travel news at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show.
This is Seclo Sounds, your community radio station. If you'd like to volunteer some of your time and skills with Seclo Sounds, send an email to volunteers@seclosounds.org and let us know how you would like to be involved. MK Flyers Online, the fast and simple way to find any kind of business or service locally. Find us at mkflyersonline.co.uk or download the MK Flyers mobile app from your app store. MK Flyers Online proudly supports Seclo Sounds, community radio for Milton Keynes.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. These vagabond shoes are longing to stray right through the very heart of it. New York, New York. I want to wake up in a city that doesn't sleep and find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. These little town blues are melting away. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York. Never sleeps and find I'm a number one, top of the list, king of the hill, a number one. These little town blues make a brand new start of it in old New York. And if I can make it there, I'm gonna make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York.
John Guinn Travel Show. Checking it out before you check in on seclosounds.org.
I think Central Park is going to be a must-visit destination for the reasons we've just discussed. There's so much to do and see there. But one of my favourite things in New York is to take a boat trip and to see the city from the water. It gives you a completely different perspective on the skyline. You get to see the Statue of Liberty and the Brooklyn Bridge and all these other kind of iconic sites. Lower Manhattan from the water. So there are a number of options in terms of boat trips, from sightseeing tours to commuter ferries or the Staten Island ferry, which is completely free and gives you great views of the Statue of Liberty. We'd also recommend that you spend some time outside Manhattan and go and explore the other boroughs. So Brooklyn, for instance, you can walk across the Brooklyn Bridge or the Manhattan Bridge over to Brooklyn. There's a great outdoors food market called Smorgasburg, which takes place at the weekends during the summer months, and actually from spring all the way through to autumn. And it's also worth knowing that New York City has 14 miles of coastline, and a lot of people don't realise that. They don't think of it as a city with a beach. But Coney Island, which is something I think a lot of people have heard of and maybe have a picture of in their head, that's on the end of the subway line down in Brooklyn. So in fact, you can jump on a subway in Midtown Manhattan and be at the beach with an amazing ocean front, a fun fair, lots of rides and entertainment within about half an hour. So it's closer than London to Brighton, for instance, and you can actually combine your city break with a beach holiday, which I think is something that a lot of people aren't aware of. And also in the summer, that it's the best time of year for free events. If you're looking for free art galleries, theatre, concerts, movie screenings, there's so much going on around the city in the months of July and August, so it's always worth researching before you go what the main events are, and you can pretty much have keep your costs for the hotel and the flights and save money when you get there on the ground with all the free attractions and events going on.
Yeah, I must admit, I never thought about having a beach holiday while I was in New York.
Exactly. You can go shopping, buy yourself some beachwear, and then try it out the next day.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. What difference would there be if somebody was having a short break during the winter?
Obviously, it's a bit colder in the winter, so people are favouring the more indoor activities. At this time of year, before Christmas, shopping is obviously a popular draw. The sort of shopping season really starts after Thanksgiving with Black Friday, which is the day after Thanksgiving when all the major sales begin in the shop. So that's a great time for people to start shopping. But even those who aren't really keen on retail therapy might enjoy just viewing the department store windows. So all of the big shops have this big competition to have the most festive, spectacular window displays. So that in itself becomes a tourist attraction, going around New York and checking out these window displays. It's also a great time of year at the moment to explore the museums and galleries. Obviously, we've got big, iconic institutions such as the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Guggenheim, MoMA, the American Museum of Natural History. All of these places have amazing exhibitions on, and quite often they bring in their new exhibitions to run over the winter months, so that's always popular. And there's lots of sort of smaller, quirky museums as well. There are a lot of ice rinks around the city right now, which will probably run until February, March or April. In December, we've got the Christmas markets taking place. And then in terms of winter entertainment, there's lots of seasonal shows on, such as the New York City Ballet's performance of the Nutcracker, which is a seasonal annual performance, and the Radio City Christmas Spectacular, which is starring the Rockettes, the high-kicking chorus line girls at Radio City Music Hall. So those are perennial classics. And along with that, you've got the traditional Broadway musicals. There's lots of fantastic shows on at the moment, really popular ones, including Book of Mormon, Wicked, Matilda, Kinky Boots, The Lion King. There's something to suit everyone, really. And there's a lot of stars on Broadway right now as well, so lots of fantastic theatre.
It is winter time now, and New Year's coming. New Year's Eve in Times Square is meant to be really special, but what should every visitor know beforehand?
Well, there's quite a lot of things you should know, because there's around 1 million visitors expected in the Times Square area on New Year's Eve, so it's one of the biggest events that New York stages every year. We actually have a guide to what you should know before you go on our website, nycgo.com. Some of the key points for Brits would probably be to know that alcohol is banned. Public drinking is illegal in New York City, so don't take along your champagne, unfortunately, or your beer, because you're at the risk of getting arrested, and obviously that's not the best way to be spending the New Year. Bags are also banned for security reasons, so if you want to go, just make sure that you've got a big warm jacket and you can fill up your pockets with cameras or anything else you might need. There are no public toilets around, so you need to find a bathroom before you go. And also, because it's so crowded in the area, you'd be advised to eat before you go, because getting in and out to food vendors is going to be a really tricky time. So it's basically just plan ahead, arrive early if you want to get a good view, wear comfortable shoes because you'll be standing for a number of hours, and wrap up warmly because it might be cold.
Okay, so dress appropriately, go on a full stomach but with an empty bladder,
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's it. Okay.
And sadly, no drinking.
No drinking. Oh well, I'll stick to London then.
Step into the spotlight with me, Lucy, every Wednesday between 6 and 7 p.m. on Seclo Sounds. I'll have new music, the latest entertainment news, and interviews with local bands. If you're in a band, or if you have music that you think I should be playing, I'd love to hear from you. Email me, lucy@seclosounds.org, and join me every Wednesday from 6 till 7 for Spotlight on Seclo Sounds.
You can contact us or just keep up to date with travel news at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. This week's show is a New York City special. My guest is Kate Popham, who comes from the London office for the New York Tourist Board. Any websites mentioned on today's show can be found at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. And here's Kate to tell us more about New York City.
Well, New York City is a very modern destination, so it's very well equipped for visitors with all kinds of disabilities. There is an accessibility guide which you can find at nycgo.com/accessibility, and that's a guide to everything you'll need to know, including which hotels, public transportation stations and tourist attractions are accessible for wheelchair users or those with mobility issues. Another service we can recommend is called Big Apple Greeter, which is a volunteer organisation which teams up visitors with local volunteers who can give them tips on exploring their city. And now Big Apple Greeter pioneered an access program around 20 years ago, I think. So that allows disabled travellers from the UK or other countries to meet or to speak to locals who might be in the same situation as them, and then they can get first-hand tips and advice from them. So if they're concerned about getting the right information and, is this museum really going to be suitable for me? Will I be able to access it? They can speak to someone on the ground who can give them loads of really good tips and advice on their own experiences in New York. And then some other services that you can find listed on our website include companies which will rent out disability scooters or wheelchairs, so that if it's an issue travelling with yours or bringing it on the plane, and perhaps you just want to rent one for a couple of days while you're in New York City, there are companies that allow you to do that as well.
That guided scheme sounds a really good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea. It just makes it a lot more convenient for travellers. And equally, it's not people just with disabilities or accessibility issues. We're also looking at families with pushchairs or prams. It is a family-friendly city, and we want to encourage families with children of all ages, but people carrying buggies and pushchairs are going to face the same issues. So it's accessible to everybody.
How about Times Square on New Year's Eve? There's going to be 1 million people there. How easy is it if you've got accessibility issues?
It will be very busy in Times Square, and everyone will be advised, therefore, to arrive early. You'd really be advised to arrive sort of mid-afternoon to get a good viewing point. There will be a specific section cordoned off for wheelchair users. However, this hasn't yet been announced where it'll be. So the best thing to do is to have a look at the Times Square Alliance website, where they will be listing details a little bit closer to the time.
Okay. So at least they'll be able to get in.
Yes.
Away from all the crush.
But it's worth looking at the website in advance. It's quite a large area, and you just would want to know in advance which subway station or which part of Times Square to approach, so that you're in the most appropriate area and don't have to battle your way through hundreds of thousands of people.
You've already mentioned there's a wide range of accommodation from hostels to luxury hotels, but I've read that there may be a problem with local laws if somebody rents out a room or apartment using a website such as Airbnb. Is there a problem, and would you recommend that visitors keep away from such a private arrangement?
That is correct. New York State brought in a new law in 2011 which makes it illegal to rent out most apartments for less than 30 days. So that does include rentals in New York City, and it therefore does affect a lot of properties being offered on those kind of websites. So the point we want to make is that these sites are completely legitimate and reputable in other parts of the United States and operate completely legally in other parts of the world. But we do want travellers to be aware that just because they are trusted sites, it doesn't guarantee that the properties listed for New York City are exempt from the law. In a lot of cases, they don't comply with this new law. So we'd always advise travellers to book hotels and other forms of budget accommodation rather than apartments. There are a few exceptions to the rule. For instance, if the owner is in residence, or if you're renting an entire property, a whole house, rather than an apartment in an apartment block, or if you're negotiating a house swap, so no money changes hands. So there are opportunities for staying in private residences, but in most cases, the apartment rentals for less than 30 days are illegal. So travellers would be best advised to avoid them because there's no protection in terms of their money, and also there's no way of policing how safe and sanitary these properties are.
Okay.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Seclo Sounds exists to bring people and communities together to celebrate all that's best about the city of Milton Keynes. We produce a variety of music and speech programmes, and you've heard some of the promos in this show, and we're produced by local people and run by over 60 volunteers. However, there's always room for more, so if you have a programme idea or a skill that you want to offer, please send us an email to volunteers@seclosounds.org. And of course, as we're all volunteers, we can't operate without the help from our partners, and one such partner is Interaction. Seclo Sounds is based at the old rectory, which is the home of Interaction MK. They've been bringing arts to life in Milton Keynes for over 35 years. They use the arts to improve the life chances of disabled people and others in challenging circumstances through shared creative activity. Their programs help participants to develop creative, personal and social skills. To find out more, please visit them at www.interactionmk.org.uk. You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Still to come on the show, travel news, but at the moment my guest is Kate Popham from the New York Tourist Board's office in London. She's been telling us all through the show what you can see and do in New York. There's so much to do, we've still got plenty more to talk about. So here's Kate to tell us a little bit more.
What about when you go shopping? I believe that the prices that are displayed are not necessarily the prices you're going to be paying because there's taxes. What's the average amount of tax on a purchase, and can a UK visitor claim any of it back as duty-free?
Yeah, this is another source of confusion, and I find it quite confusing myself when I go shopping in New York. And sometimes you end up paying more than the advertised price. Sometimes you will pay the advertised price, and it's a bit confusing knowing which items have tax added and which ones don't. The best rule that I live by myself is to assume that 10% will be added at the till, and only buy the item if you're happy with that amount. I think the actual sales tax is just under 9%, so it would actually be less than 10%. And you won't be obliged to pay it on every item. There are certain exceptions. For instance, food and beverage purchased at a grocery store is exempt from the tax, but food and beverage in a restaurant or in a cafe or a deli will have the tax added. But it's always best to assume that you will be paying a little bit more than is advertised on the price label. It's also worth knowing, though, that big stores like Macy's do give international visitors a 10% discount. So, in effect, they're reimbursing the sales tax for you. There's not a simple way of claiming back the tax on your purchases through duty-free at the airport or anything like that, which you might be able to do in other countries. But if you go and ask in places like Macy's, and I believe Bloomingdale's might also do it, you can tell them you're an international visitor and show your passport, and they will give you a voucher that will give you 10% off your purchases. So that's a really good tip to know about.
Yeah, I didn't know about that one. That one store. Yeah. Where is the best part of New York City to go shopping?
It really depends what you're after. Places like Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue are well known for their luxury brands, although Fifth Avenue is also now has a lot more high street sort of brands on there as well. Times Square, if you want to do late night shopping, the shops around Times Square are open till 11 p.m. or midnight a lot of the time, so that's a really good place to go and buy your souvenirs and high street clothing. The area around Macy's, so sort of Herald Square, 34th Street, is very good for high street brands. So you find your H&M, your Victoria's Secret, Gap, American Eagle, Old Navy, those kind of stores around there. However, if you're looking for something a bit more unique, we would recommend you head to somewhere like Soho or to Brooklyn for sort of one-off boutiques and galleries sort of not part of the chain stores.
So plenty of options then when you want to spend your cash.
Definitely. You need to take an empty suitcase with you when you travel to New York, or buy one when you're there.
Yeah. You've already said about what people should do and experience when they're in New York, but if a family was to visit, what's the minimum amount of time you would recommend for them to stay?
You can really never run out of things to do in New York City. Even if you stayed there for a month, you'd be finding new places to explore and new things to do. With a family, obviously you might be a little bit more restricted on timings, depending on how young the children are. You might need to get them to bed earlier. So I would sort of factor in probably a minimum of 4 days to fit in a number of their favourite sites and to just give everyone the best opportunity to enjoy their trip. So some of the key places that we find are the most popular with children include the American Museum of Natural History, which they seem to know very well from the film The Night at the Museum, which is set there. The Bronx Zoo is one of the biggest urban zoos in the United States, and obviously Central Park Zoo as well. Statue of Liberty is always popular, taking a boat out there to Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island Immigration Museum. Central Park's a great place to go and to wander around and enjoy and have a picnic. There are some great shows for kids on Broadway at the moment, so shows like The Lion King, Newsies, which is based on the Disney film. Matilda has come over from London and is going down really, really well in New York with the critics and with audiences. At the moment, you've got Spider-Man playing, which will be closing in 2014, but it will be soon replaced by a new production of Disney's Aladdin, so that's going to be another really popular option for families. And there are obviously matinee performances as well as evening performances, so there's an option there for kids if you want to get them to bed earlier. And then in the summer, take them down to Coney Island, go to the beach, have some fun on the fun fair, and enjoy a different side to the city that is less known. We actually have a family ambassador as well, so every year NYC and Company, the tourist office, employs the services of a popular children's character. So this year it's Where's Wally? And he's on our website giving tips on the best places for families to enjoy, his advice on tours, where to eat, and different ways for families to enjoy the city. And that's updated every season with season-specific events. So if you look for Where's Wally on our website, you'll come across that site.
So plenty to do for a family, but what if you're going away to be romantic? Where's the best place for a Valentine's Day break?
I think everywhere is exciting in New York City, whether you're there alone or with a partner or with a family. Valentine's Day, I think one of the classic things that couples enjoy doing is going to the top of the Empire State Building, just because it's such a big thing in films like Sleepless in Seattle, and I think everyone enjoys recreating those movie moments. But also there's some fantastic hotels, obviously boutique-style hotels, luxury hotels, where you can really sort of spoil yourself and splurge a little bit if you're looking for a romantic getaway. Rooftop bars for a cocktail are pretty popular. Also taking a stroll along the High Line, the new park, or through Central Park is something that couples would enjoy. Obviously going to see a Broadway show or going to the opera or a ballet or a concert is going to be another a popular date night. And also something that maybe less people know about, which I think is a popular option for a Valentine's break, would be going for a dining cruise out on the Hudson River, where you can enjoy New York City by night, looking at the skyline, but having a fantastic meal while you do so.
I hope all the men listening were making notes there, because we're always hopeless at arranging that sort of thing. There's plenty of ideas.
Plenty of tips we can give you.
You've already mentioned your website a few times, but how can we find out more about New York?
So yes, the website is nycgo.com, and that has tons of information on what to see and do all throughout the year. So it has editorial features, giving you ideas for themed itineraries, as well as listings for events, hotels, restaurants, theatre shows, everything like that. We've also recently added to that a lot of new neighbourhood guides, which recommend the best things to explore in boroughs such as Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx and Staten Island. So it's for people who are looking to do something beyond Manhattan, perhaps people who've been to Manhattan several times and want to try something new next time they go to New York. So that gives you lots of tips on that. We also have We're also on Twitter, and we're also on Facebook. And on Facebook, we have a UK Facebook page for New York City, which recommends particularly things that Brits might enjoy doing. And that's kind of targeted more to people who might be planning their trips 2 or 3 months in advance, rather than something that's happening in New York tonight, which you would miss. It's kind of thinking, planning ahead and encouraging people to travel in a few months' time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
That's all right. Thank you very much.
You're listening to the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org. Once again, if you've visited New York City and you've got some tips and hints to share with us, please share them at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. And now, travel news. I've had a press release from the GACC, the Gatwick Area Conservation Committee. They're a protest group making sure that the Gatwick Airport doesn't have too much of an impact in the local area, whether it's personal or environmental. With Boris Island being scrapped, apart from Boris, he says it hasn't, but according to everybody else in the world, Boris Island, the idea has been scrapped. Which means that the airport expansion is going to be a choice of 2 Heathrow ideas, or 1 Gatwick and an extra runway at Gatwick. And not only that, there's a new flight paths have been introduced by Gatwick Airport Limited, and they're causing a wave of protest in the area. So, to make sure everybody's on the ball, the GACC released this press release, and we're now going to go through it now. Gatwick in a spin over angry residents. New flight paths introduced by Gatwick Airport Limited are causing a wave of protest across large parts of East and West Sussex, Kent and Surrey. MPs, including Nick Herbert and Francis Maud, Paul Beresford, Crispin Blunt, John Stanley, Greg Clark and Charles Henry, all report that they are overwhelmed with the correspondence from upset constituents. I even get that right. New anti-noise groups, all welcomed and supported by the GACC, have sprung up in Crowborough, Sevenoaks, Weald, Tunbridge Wells, Penshurst, Chiddingstone, Bears Green and Warnham. Gatwick Airport called an emergency meeting on the 29th of August of the Airport Noise Committee, NATMAG, to try and calm the situation, before it takes a shine off this extravaganza campaign for a second runway. The problem has been caused by a new route over Warham and North Horsham, as well as the introduction of a new concentrated departure flight paths over Holmwood, Brockenham and Reigate, and also over Penhurst and Tunbridge Wells. These new concentrated routes, PBN, performance-based navigation, are causing great distress compounded by a loss of house values of thousands of pounds. In Kent and East Sussex, anger at the increased number of flights has been magnified by fears of new flight paths for arriving aircraft, and concentration on a single merge point, announced by NATS. NATS control the air traffic space, but with the actual location of the new routes and the merge point being kept secret. GACC are monitoring the situation and advising members and putting forward constructive solutions, and they say you can see the response to airspace consultation at www.gacc.org.uk. And also there is a protest meeting. The GACC are arranging a protest meeting. It's to protest about the new new flight paths and to express opposition to the new Gatwick runway idea. It's on the 22nd of November, which is a Saturday in the afternoon. More details will be coming, but if you're in the Gatwick area and you're concerned about new flight paths and the possibility of an extra runway, then perhaps you should go along to this meeting on the 22nd of November. I will announce the details once I have them. Or, on the other hand, you could be in the Gatwick area and you welcome the expansion of the airport, so perhaps you should go there too and put your point of view across. If you've ever been affected by aircraft noise and the changing of routes, and it's caused you problems, including house price going down, please share your experiences at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. Well, that's the end of another travel show with John Guinn. I found this stuff on New York very interesting, and it's definitely on my list. As I keep saying, it's definitely on my list for just about everything I have on my show, but that's because I'm getting people I'm interested in onto the show to interview them. If there's any particular destination that interests you, just let me know, facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show, and I'll do my best to get them on the show, and you can learn all about the destination that you want to hear about. If you've been to New York and you've had a great time, please share your pictures and experiences at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. Again, if you've had any problems in New York, you can share them at the same Facebook page. I'm also interested to hear from people who live near airports. Is noise a problem? I'm on a kind of a flight path for Luton Airport, but it's only a few aircraft a day, depending on the weather, and sometimes it can be annoying, especially when I'm recording this show because I can hear the planes going overhead. But what about you? What if you live closer to an airport and it's constant? Every 30 seconds or so a plane goes over your head. How does that affect your life? Facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. Tell us all about it. And I hope you can join me next time on the John Guinn Travel Show on seclosounds.org, where each week I'm checking it out before you check in.
Around the world, the trip begins with a kiss.
MK Pulse proudly sponsors Seclo Sounds. MK Pulse is Milton Keynes' local magazine, bringing helpful information on food, health, fashion, money, travel, culture, and much more to 66,000 readers every month. Plus news, views, and what's on from around the city. If it's happening in Milton Keynes, it's in MK Pulse, and it's available online at www.mkpulse.co.uk. MK Pulse and Seclo Sounds, the heart and soul of the city.